Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, Kuro Games has come out with a bunch of news regarding the newest Resonator, Phrolova. And it's time for us to go ahead, take a look at her kit, break it all down, talk about some of her interactions, mechanics, and her best teammates naturally, and move forward from there as we get closer and closer to her release. So with that, why don't we go ahead and just get right on into it and see what this unit is all about, because she's very, very focused on echo skills, as you'll see broken down in her kit, and that is going to have some pretty, well, some could say strict requirements for her top tier performance in the meta. So with that, let's go ahead and start breaking it all down. So we got our profile reveal over here. Do not fear the Fraxidus Overseer. Okay, Dr. Seuss. Settle your mind. Okay, whatever. Now, let's get on into some of the details surrounding her baseline characteristics. She's, of course, going to be Havoc. She's going to be a Rectifier user, and her Ascension mats are going to be new materials that I don't think are available in the 2.4 update, or any version before that, to be honest. So do keep that in mind. Truth and Lies and Afterlife are both resources that I'm pretty sure will be unlocked from some of the new bosses that are coming out, and naturally in the new area too, unless I am mistaken, because I have never seen these two things before. Next up, for the skill mats, it's going to be, of course, the Rectifier one, some Polygon cores, same for the Ascension, and then Hikate's boss mat for, well, the person that uses Hikate. Makes a lot of sense, and well, frankly, if we're being honest over here, Hikate's boss mat has been available since the start of version 2.0, so definitely do make sure that this is what you're farming across this week and across the next couple of weeks as well, if this is the unit that you're looking to raise to maximum power. Next, getting past that, let's take a quick look at her combat roles, because that's going to have to do with her buffing and her damage type. She's going to be a main DPS, which is what the Havoc team truly needed with Rosia and Cantarella. She's going to be dealing resonant skill damage, which is great for Cantarella, and she's also going to come with her own Havoc damage and heavy attack amplification, which will match up with Rosia's damage type. And so if it isn't clear already, you can just, this is kind of like what we'll do over here to demonstrate it. Your team is essentially going to be Rosia, your Cantarella, and then pretend Camellia is Phrolova. And this is kind of like the order of the outro skills. Rosia's basic attack and Havoc goes to Cantarella. Cantarella's Havoc and Resonant skill goes to Phrolova. And then Phrolova's heavy attack and Havoc goes to Rosia. And that's going to be the order of the outro skills and probably the rotation too. So do keep that in mind. Now, let's go ahead and keep moving on and start taking a look at her baseline kit. So one thing that Kuro Games has started doing, and this is probably the third time they've done it, so I'm pretty sure it's the new regular, is that when they're displaying their abilities at a baseline, they show really simplified versions where it's like deal Havoc damage. So we'll be quickly going over these baseline descriptions first, calling out any, significant modifiers, and then moving on from there. So yeah, her normal attack is going to consist of a basic and heavy that deal damage, but she is going to have an enhanced heavy attack, and that's where that resonant skill damage type is going to come in. When her forte is full, an enhanced heavy becomes available that deals massive resonant skill Havoc damage. After Sound, which is a separate buff in her kit, increases the damage multiplier of this instance, and casting this skill is considered an echo skill, and it cannot be used repeatedly within an interval. That basically just means it has a cooldown. Then she's gonna have a mid-air attack that deals damage and a dodge counter that deals damage. So yeah, you can see the simplified explanations firsthand. Now we got the resonant skill. You guessed it, that's what it does. Now let's move on. All right, now for Resonance Liberation. Waltz of the Forsaken Depths. Casting that enhanced heavy attack that we just looked at, right, that deals resonance skill damage and has a cooldown, actually unlocks her Resonance Liberation. That's why it has the cooldown. Casting her Resonance Liberation allows her to enter her enhanced state, and that's when, she smiles, gets up on her cradle, and then Hikate starts getting down to business. When Phrolova is the active Resonator, she can command Hikate to cast basic attack from Hikate. Every 2 times Hikate casts this basic attack, the next one is replaced with an enhanced attack. So yeah, 2 attacks, build up, and then the third hit is kind of the big one. When Phrolova is not the active Resonator, Hikate automatically casts her basic attacks. And when Resonators in the team cast their echo skills, Hikate casts enhanced attack Hikate. So you have 2 ways to build up the damage. You either can manually control Hikate, do those 2 basics into the third enhanced, or when she's off field, she'll always do the basics, Hikari. And then when you use an Echo skill, she'll use the enhanced version. And so naturally, right, there's going to be some big differentiations that occur here based off of the teammates that you're going to have in your team. The reason why Rosia and Cantarella are so heavily recommended for her, aside from the outro skills that exist in the team, one of the big reasons why is because Rosia's magical box, which groups enemies, is considered an Echo skill. Second is that Cantarella actually has 3 Echo skills built into her kit. One in her Dance with the Shadows ability, where Flickering Reverie or her Resonance skill while she's in the Mirage form or her Forte is going to count as one. Then she's going to have her special attack, Perception Drain, which also counts as one. And then we're also going to have her Liberation, which summons the Jellyfish Coordinated Attacks, which is also considered one. So that's 3 at a baseline, and then you have the Echo skills of the units themselves. That's 4 extra Echo skills from having this team slotted into here. And so you can naturally see how you're going to want to maximize the number of those enhanced attacks. Now, let's go ahead. Let's keep on moving. When you switch back to Phrolova, which I imagine you do by casting your Liberation, that's going to end your enhanced state. Basic attack Hikari is going to deal Havoc damage that's considered Echo skill damage, and then the enhanced attack is also going to deal Havoc damage. And when Phrolova is not the active Resonator, i.e., when her teammates are essentially using Echo skills to trigger this enhanced attack, that is what's going to give her the After Sound buff. And that After Sound buff over here is what amplifies that enhanced heavy attack damage. That triggers her Liberation. So you can kind of see that this team doesn't have the strongest first rotation ever. It gets more buffs for the second one, right? Because it looks like After Sound is the main way to increase the damage of the second rotation, and it doesn't sound like you get it on the first one. But we'll see in gameplay. Now let's move on to her Forte Circuit, and this one is kind of complicated. It's a little bit long, but you'll understand that it's not actually too crazy. So, Basic Attack Stage 3 and her Resonance skill can actually be chained into Enhanced Basic Attacks or Enhanced Resonance skills, and those will deal Havoc damage that are considered as Resonance skill. Casting this third stage of her Basic Attack or an Enhanced Basic Attack grants her a red Forte Circuit gauge. Casting a Resonance skill or Enhanced Resonance skill gives her a purple one. She holds up to 6. In the enhanced state, Hikari's special attack, or her third hit, is going to gain different buffs depending on the color of your Forte gauge. You have 6 possible slots. If a majority of them are red, then she's going to stagnate the targets with that attack, or basically slow them down. Don't let them take any action. Kind of like a Spectral Rover outro skill, or like a Phoebe using her field on her skill. When she has a purple majority Forte gauge, then she's actually going to pull enemies in and CC them and group them. So it looks like the Havoc team also has built-in grouping and CC from Phrolova. And when you're combined, you have 3 of both. You're split down the middle in terms of your stacks on your Forte and the color. She's going to stagnate and pull the targets in. So there is quite a bit of complexity. Not that much. Just do 3 of one and 3 of the other and you get both effects. When it comes to actually building up and using these enhanced skills and basic attacks, and then you'll get different effects in actual practice when Hikari's zipping around doing all of her stuff. Now we got her intro skill. Deal Havoc damage, and it can be followed by the third stage of her basic attack. You can see the kind of like chaining in the animations being smoothened up by actually using her kit. And then while she's in the enhanced state, or controlling Hikari, the next intro skill is replaced with the enhanced intro skill. That's going to deal Havoc damage, considered as Resonance skill, and then that enhanced intro can also be followed up by the third basic attack. So you're seeing over here a lot of attacks that can chain into each other. You want to build up her Forte using a mixture of both attacks, because I'm sure there'll be like a cooldown and some animation cancels you can do. Build up that Forte Circuit, trigger that enhanced heavy attack, and then get on the cradle and, watch Hikari go blow everything up. Now we got the outro, and this is where the heavy attack and the Havoc damage amplification is going to come in. She's just straight up going to give a 20-25% split across both of those, intended for Rosia, and they kind of move on from there. You can also use it on Dan Jin. If Phrolova is in the enhanced state, when she casts this skill, Hikari casts additional enhanced attacks. Hikari. So, yeah, you do want to make sure that this is ready to go by the time you swap off, go to your Rosia, and then kind of, get that rotation going for the rest of the team. So, that is going to be the very abridged overview of her kit. Now let's start going into some of the specifics and the deeper mechanics, starting off with her combat guide. So, casting the Echo skills of Resonators in the team deals massive Resonance skill damage and Echo skill damage from Hikari doing her enhanced attacks. Different chain skills grant different types of Forte gauge, enabling various movesets during the enhanced state. She's got a CC or a vacuum, or a combination of both. And then her outro skill amplifies the next incoming Resonator's Havoc damage and heavy attack. Very simple, brief summary of what we saw before. Casting her basic attack stage 3 and Resonance skill enables follow-ups, and then you'll gain the different types of Forte Circuit. And we just read about all these different buffs. It's kind of like, I don't know if this was ChatGPT. This second paragraph is kind of just this first paragraph rewritten in literally the opposite order. So yeah, I think we derived everything valuable we can from that. Now let's get into our in-depth explanations on her abilities. Yeah, no, these are the same fucking sentence. I don't know why they did that. Anyways, normal attack, movement of life and death. She's gonna perform up to 3 consecutive attacks, dealing havoc damage. And when she performs the third basic attack, she enters the reincarnate state, and I'm sure that leads to the enhanced ones. For her heavy attack, she just consumes stamina to attack, and then if you use a normal right after, you'll get into the second stage of her basic. And then she's also going to have an effect called Scarlet Coda, which leads up to her enhanced heavy attack that triggers her liberation. She enters it every 25 seconds. That's that built-in cooldown that we were talking about. When the 3 conditions are met, the heavy attack is replaced with Scarlet Coda. She's got 6 volatile notes, or the things that we're doing enhanced basics or enhanced resonance skills to build up. She's in the compose state and not in the resolving chord state. So this is going to consume stamina, deal havoc damage. It's also going to CC enemies, time freeze them, and then also pull them in together. And it's also going to deal resonance skill damage. And then when you have after sound, which is essentially the coordinated attacks that Hikari does, each stack is going to increase the damage multiplier of this ability. It's also going to be considered an echo skill, and then it's going to send compose into cooldown and then activate resolving chord. So this is kind of like a bunch of different ways to have a cooldown on the ability, so you just don't have it up all the time and you're not spamming this attack. I imagine that Scarlet Coda is going to deal a lot of damage. Otherwise, it wouldn't have all of these built-in buffs, and it also wouldn't have a cooldown that large if it wasn't the case. So it's probably going to be similar to like a Camellia Ephemeral in terms of like really, really big nuke and then enhanced damage state afterwards. Kind of, you know, a similar design that we're seeing over here when it comes to the Havoc characters. Her meter attack is just a plunge, nothing too interesting over here, probably not going to use it very often. And for her dodge counter, she's going to advance her basic attack chain. After a dodge, you'll immediately get into basic attack stage 3 and then be able to build up your forte faster. Pretty typical part of a kit. Next up, we have her resonant skill. Attack the target and deal havoc damage. Casting this skill sends Phrolova into the reincarnate state. And like we saw over here, basic attack stage 3 also enters the reincarnate state. So that's where you can immediately follow up with an enhanced basic or an enhanced resonance skill. Now we got a liberation. Phrolova's max resonance energy is 0. And that's where the synergy comes in with her new Sonata set. She is the only one that can currently use this. It's also very easy to farm, but Dream of the Lost is hyper-specific in that it requires you to have 0 resonance energy to cast. Phrolova's resource is essentially her Forte Circuit, which is built up by repeatedly going into the reincarnate state. And so that's why she doesn't have resonance energy. The nice part about this, though, is that, well, it looks like Phrolova's generation of her energy is not tied to any of her teammates at all. She does deal more damage while Hikari's doing more coordinated or enhanced basic attacks from teammates' echo skills, but the buildup of the Forte Circuit, the buildup of the notes, the volatile ones that actually let her trigger her liberation, those are separate from her team. So yeah, it'll be no issue at all playing her in different lineups if your goal is to, you know, have consistent uptime across all your teams. So definitely a great choice when it comes to her overall design. Just make sure that you don't roll any ER subs on your pieces because they will literally do nothing for you. So yeah, when in the resolving chord state, Waltz of Forsaken Depths becomes available, and casting this skill ends resolving chord, and Phrolova enters the Maestro state for 24 seconds. So you can see where the difference is over here. That's where the whole resolving chord issue with the cooldown on her ability gets resolved. Nothing too crazy. Now, the Maestro state. And this is when she uses her liberation, summons Hikari, gets onto, you know, her thing in the air, and then just starts directing Hikari to start dealing some damage. And this one's kind of long, so get ready, ladies and gentlemen. First things first, after Phrolova uses her liberation, she's going to gain a whopping 120% attack. This might be literally the biggest buff in the game. What this leads me to assume, though, is that Phrolova's multipliers probably aren't going to be crazy at a baseline while in Hecate mode, because this is one of the biggest attack increases we've ever seen. She floats in the air and commands Hecate to fight. Hecate will share Phrolova's stats and statuses, and damage dealt by Hecate will be considered coming from Phrolova. Hecate's attacks will not remove the target's hazy dream state. And so you probably need to be aware of what hazy dream even is for this to make sense. Hazy dream is a special debuff applied by only Cantarella in this game, which is essentially she CCs the target for 6.5 seconds, triggers Jolt when the target does take damage, and attacks by other Resonators in the team will not trigger a Jolt on a target influenced by Hazy Dream and will remove it. But because Hecate is considered an Echo skill, her damage is actually not going to remove Hazy Dream. And so you can think about it this way. It's just going to apply more CC to bosses, but it would also require you to not deal any damage at all with the on-field character. All this is going to do is just make Cantarella's rotation a lot more safe, and she's likely not going to get hit at all if that's occurring. And so I don't really view this as that meaningful in overall gameplay. If you guys have actually played Cantarella and interacted with the Hazy Dream debuff, it's not that helpful in combat. You end up triggering it like yourself across your rotation, and I don't see any circumstance where this interaction is going to do particularly much unless you are like intentionally griefing your rotation and not using any abilities, because Cantarella oftentimes wakes up the enemies from Hazy Dream herself, because otherwise she's not dealing this jolt damage across her rotation. And that's, you know, when she can jolt about 2 to 3 times in a rotation, that's quite a bit not to have available. So yeah, just something to keep in mind when it comes to that interaction. So during the state, Phrolova's going to play volatile notes in order, and each volatile note holds for 4 seconds. She has 6. That's where the 24 second duration comes from. If Phrolova is the active Resonator on the field, she can give the following cues to Hecate. Any damage taken by Hecate in this state affects Phrolova as well. So who knows? Maybe HP and defense rolls aren't that bad on this character, because I don't know if Hecate knows how to dodge. Q, the basic attack. You're going to press the normal attack button while still controlling Phrolova to command Hecate to cast her basic attack. When Phrolova is the active character, every 2 times she attacks, you get an enhanced one. Kind of the same description that we saw before. You can actually cause Hecate to dodge, so it looks like HP and defense is off the table. She takes no damage if she successfully dodges. That's kind of crazy. She also has a reset button. Pressing jump is just going to cause Hecate to, I guess, respawn to wherever she spawned from before. And then Curtain Call is going to be pressing your liberation to command Hecate to cast Curtain Call and then end the Maestro state. That is how you can manually end your liberation. When Phrolova is not the active character, Hecate takes no damage and then automatically casts those basic attacks. And then when Echo skills are used, Hecate's going to cast her enhanced attack. So yeah, very, very, very simple stuff that we're seeing over here, just more expanded from that original description. The only real difference is that this effect can be triggered up to 10 times in total during Phrolova's Maestro state. So currently in the game, even on her best in slot team, at least on launch, just so you guys know, you don't have enough Echo skills with Cantarella and Rosia to actually trigger all of Phrolova's enhanced attacks. Yeah, you don't. Cantarella has 4, Rosia has 2. That's only 6. That is 6 total enhanced attacks. And so, unless the enhanced attacks that Phrolova is manually triggering count against the 10 timer, then it turns out that Phrolova might have a better teammate in the future. Rosia might be the replacement over here. I don't think Cantarella is going to be the replacement, because Cantarella actually comes in with built-in sustain and healing. If anything, they might have a new Havoc sub DPS or DPS coming out that also deals heavy attack damage, that's going to have more Echo skills built into their kit. That's what I would assume, given this very, very, very large 10 count, 10 stack ability, right, to use her enhanced attacks. So yeah, switching back to Phrolova while Hecate is, you know, kind of doing her own thing off field is going to end the effect, but you're typically going to do that via an intro skill, and then ending the Maestro state is going to remove all of your volatile nodes. Very, very typical resource consumption. Nothing too crazy. Hecate basic attack just deals Havoc damage as Echo skill damage. Her enhanced attack is going to, well, deal damage, stagnate them, pull them in, or actually do both, depending on the notes that you have. Kind of like that 3-3 split we were talking about before, or having one color over the other. And yeah, she's got 3 different attacks that, you know, you can time up across your rotation. Now we got Curtain Call, that finishing move. It can be cast in 5 ways. It stagnates the targets and deals havoc damage. When she's the active Resonator on the field and ends the Maestro state manually, she's going to use it. When she is at the Maestro state and then you switch to Phrolova without casting the intro skill, that's going to end it. When she's not the active character and the Maestro state ends, switching to Phrolova without an intro skill. And then when Phrolova's in the Maestro state, pressing Liberation. And when Phrolova's in the Resolving Chord state, holding her Liberation. And Resolving Chord is actually how you trigger her Liberation in the first place. And so, I guess this is going to be a nuke of damage that you can just decide to manually activate the nuke and not even go through the transformation, or not even go through like the Hikari moveset, if you just want like a big burst of damage as well. So, you've got a variety of different ways to play her. I think seeing that there are 5 different triggers for this is pretty interesting, and you might see some very creative gameplay come out as a result of this. We'll just have to see. Now it's time for her Forte Circuit. And it's not nearly as complicated as some of the Forte Circuits of the past. A majority of the complexity in this kit is in the Liberation. So, Rhapsody of the New World. These are her Enhanced Basic and her Enhanced Resonance skill. When in Reincarnate, or after doing a basic attack stage 3 or casting a regular resonance skill, you'll press normal attack on the ground to cast Movement of Fate and Finality, which is going to stagnate the target, deal Havoc resonance skill damage, and then end Reincarnation, and then also give her a stack on her Forte. When in Reincarnate, for her resonance skill, you're going to press the resonance skill on the ground to cast Murmurs in a Haunting Dream, dealing Havoc resonance skill damage, and then ending Reincarnate. You're probably going to want to do 3 of each of these, split up that Forte Circuit to have both colors, so you have both CC effects when you transform to Hikari. Phrolova can hold up to 24 stacks of Aftersound, which is her special buff that amplifies her transformation damage. When Phrolova is not the active Resonator, casting an enhanced version of Hikari's attack is going to grant 1 stack of Aftersound. And when Phrolova is out of combat, all stacks of Aftersound are removed every 30 seconds. So this is kind of interesting, because as far as I'm concerned, Phrolova can only deal 10 enhanced Hikari attacks across her rotation. And so I don't even know if it's possible to reach 24 stacks total, because, well, she has a manual count of 10 of these. And so unless one hit is going to grant multiple stacks, maybe this is just putting like some sort of upward limit on the kit that's made for like alternative game modes. But I think in baseline regular gameplay, that's not going to occur, because it's just 10 total attacks, 24 stacks, 1 per attack. Doesn't really seem to be mathing out right now, but maybe, who knows, maybe there's something I'm not seeing over here. Naturally, those stacks of Aftersound, like I said before, the more you have, the more damage you'll deal on that initial burst when you're transforming. Now it's time for the volatile notes. Phrolova can hold up to 6 of them. When volatile notes reach the max number, gaining new ones is just going to move all the notes 1 slot to the left, and the leftmost volatile note will be removed. And so you can kind of see over here, based off of the gameplay, we can see a clip from the actual live stream itself of how this mechanic is actually going to work. All right, here's a buildup of her Forte Circuit and what it is looking like in a gameplay demonstration. You can see them all popping up. She's using enhanced skills here. And you're seeing how, in this version, they're alternating between the different types of attacks. And this is when she's in the Reincarnate state. You can see that both the Enhanced Basic and the Enhanced Skill are available. And now you're going to see the notes move. And you can see that one just disappeared. They all moved down. And now we got a new one coming up. And that's how you can rebalance out the notes and get a more balanced effect when it comes to the CC on your Liberation. So that's just a quick demonstration for the devs. As you can see over here, she does gain those notes particularly fast, and that's the goal of each rotation, right? Get into her Liberation and then actually let Hikari do some of the driving over here. Hitting a target with basic attack stage 3 and movement of Fate and Finality will grant 1 volatile note strings. Hitting a target with Resonance Skill Whispers in a Fleeting Dream and Resonance Skill Murmurs in a Haunting Dream grants 1 volatile note wins. When inherent skill accidental is activated, casting Suite of Quietus, Suite of Immortality, or Echo skill is going to grant you an additional note of cadenza. And Phrolova cannot obtain volatile notes during resolving chord. You probably noticed this last line over here is a little bit confusing. Like, what is cadenza? We'll get into it in just a second. So, intro skill, Suite of Quietus. Attacks the target, dealing Havoc damage. Press the normal attack shortly after casting to go into the third stage of your basic. When in the Maestro state, the next Suite of Quietus is replaced with Suite of Immortality. This replacement is cancelled if Curtain Call is cast while in this state. Essentially, that's ending the Liberation state. This enhanced intro is only available if you still have Hecate up by the time you switch back to Phrolova. So you probably do want to rotate through Rosia and rotate through Cantarella relatively quickly. It's going to deal Havoc, Resonant skill damage, and it also CC the target. You'll see that using this ability, the intro skill, both the enhanced and the regular version, is going to give you a volatile note as well. So that is something that's actually going to help speed up your rotation too. And from what I'm seeing, volatile note cadenza counts as both colors. Do you see that, ladies and gentlemen? Both colors. It is red and purple at the same time. And so probably some kind of formation that you'll want to do is you go in, you get your cadenza chord, and you need to build up 5 more to get a full stack. So it's probably going to be 2 of one and then 3 of the other as a bit of a shortcut. And that's going to be available from her intro skill, or she's going to manually cast an echo skill, which is probably going to be Hecate herself to gain those cadenza stacks. Now we got our outro skill. We already talked about it. It just has a simple bonus beyond its heavy attack and Havoc damage amplification. If Phrolova's in the Maestro state when she casts this skill, Hecate additionally is going to use her enhanced attack 2 times when Phrolova is switched off the field while in the Maestro state duration. And so maybe these 2 attacks will go against like that 10-hit timer that we just looked at before, and that's where the bonus is going to come from. She's also going to have an inherent skill called Accidental. Casting the Echo skill is going to grant increased resistance to interruption and reduce damage taken by 30% for 15 seconds. And then after casting Suite of Quietus, Suite of Immortality, and the Echo skill, the next volatile note is going to be the cadenza. So you can see over here, that's where it's all coming together. Now she's got Octet. She's going to obtain 10 stacks of Aftersound upon entering the battle, and this effect cannot be triggered again within 4 seconds after exiting the combat state. For every 1 stack of Aftersound, crit damage is increased by 2.5%. And when Aftersound reaches the cap, each new stack of Aftersound increases Phrolova's crit damage by 1%, up to 100%. And the increased crit damage is removed when Aftersound stacks are cleared. So this is kind of like potentially the biggest part of her kit. You get 10 stacks of this, which has I believe a 24 stack buff. You gain 1 stack of Aftersound every time Hecate does like an enhanced attack. You gain 10 from entering combat, and then you gain crit damage for every stack that you end up building. That is going to be quite a bit of stacks. And then it looks like her enhanced outro skill with its 2 extra stacks alone, because that enhanced attack happens 2 times. Gosh, I mean, it looks like she might be able to build up at least 20, even without teammates. But we'll have to see. But reaching past the cap, I'm not sure if that's something that's going to happen. Because, well, you're gaining 1% crit damage for every additional stack that you have. Above 24, that's not that much. That's almost actually nothing. And so I would imagine that this is really just buffs oriented around solo play with the character. Who knows? Because your manually triggered ones might have an impact here too. So yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see when it comes to this character. This kit is probably one of the most unique ones we've ever seen, because I think that one of like the big issues that Phrolova is going to have, right, is the fact that she's not going to be able to quick swap at all. Quick swap is literally illegal in her kit, because pretty much every single time you switch back to her and you're not using an intro skill, you're going to end Hecate's state. And so this is the most like anti-quick swap character I think I've ever seen. It might be worse than Carlotta. It would be like if you tried swapping with Carlotta and then it ended her liberation completely, instead of giving it like a damage nerf. This is like all your DPS is gone if you're playing her in quick swap. So I would say Phrolova does look like one of the easier characters in this game to use, because she does have some restrictions built into her kit. However, she also has some of the biggest damage buffs I think I've ever seen. Like, this is just a straight up 120% attack. And then on her inherent skill, she gains 2.5% crit damage for every stack of Aftersound. Aftersound goes up to 24 stacks, so that is essentially almost a little bit more than 50%. 56, 57, 58 critical damage. Something around those lines. So it's a lot of built-in stat buffs in her kit. You also factor in that her Echo set is going to give you 20%. 20% crit, around 60% critical damage, assuming you're at max stats, 120% attack, that's a lot of attack, right? That's a lot of stats. Some people might be saying power creep, but you guys gotta factor in as well. It all depends on the multipliers that are going to be available when Hikate's doing all of these attacks. Because if those multipliers are a little bit lower than maybe what people are expecting, then the impact of these buffs isn't necessarily going to matter as much because, well, the multipliers and the motion values are what matters are what matter at the end of the day. So yeah, that will be that, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be our overview. I would say this character is looking like one of the most fun to possibly play just because of all of the off-field interactions that you're going to be seeing and the relatively unique way that her Forte Circuit and resources work. She might have a shocking amount of potential in solo teams, but she also has a lot of interactions as well, right? Naturally, with the teammates that she's going to have because of all of those different Echo skill interactions. And I have to say that I think it's a good way to add some variation to kits, and I think it's actually somewhat exciting that even in like her best in slot team in the present, it doesn't look like this character is going to be able to reach their full potential. It looks like they still have some room to actually grow, and the big reason for that, right, is this whole like 24 stacks of Aftersound, and it looks like she can't even reach those max stacks yet, as well as the cap on those coordinated attacks, enhanced attacks from Hikate. So yeah, that'll be the overview. Let me know what you all think about this character. I think she is one of the most exciting ones we've had yet, though she might be a little simple in actual gameplay. Let me know what you all think. Peace.